Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome back to Wicca 303. Today's lesson is going to be about the light. So when we talk about the light within the context of the craft, the first thing we think of is projective, active, masculine energy. And then the next thing we might think of is the light half of the year, the summer solstice. That's one of the reasons why we're talking about it right now. It's because we have that occasion creeping up on us pretty quickly. We think of the god because of his primary symbol within Wicca is that of the light, of the sun, very strong life-giving energies. We also think of solar deities for obvious reasons. We think of the fire element, along with various forms of elementals and fae, salamanders, dragons, phoenix, fire fae. And we also think about the exercise of power. And in its essence, this is all the opposite of what the dark is. The projective masculine, active masculine. Well, then we know that the dark is the receptive, the more passive, the feminine. The light is the light half of the year. The dark is the dark half of the year. Summer solstice, winter solstice. God, goddess, solar deities, lunar deities, water element, fire, uh, uh, fire element, water element, rather. Instead of salamanders, we would have undines. Instead of dragons, mermaids. Instead of things like the phoenix, perhaps the kelpie and fire fae, we would have water fae. And instead of exercising power, it's more of absorbing power. So you see, when we think about the light and the dark, it becomes so obvious on so many levels that we're not talking about good and evil, which is the way the world in general commonly thinks of, the light and the dark. They do think in terms of good and evil because they're coming out of a civilization that was strongly influenced by this very Abrahamic monotheistic worldview, as opposed to thinking about the natural conditions of what things are and the function of what that they are. So, let's talk about the literal light, because we know that the sun makes all life on Earth possible. Without it, forget about it. It does not matter if we had every other condition that would be conducive for life. If we did not have the sun, or we did not have the right amount of it, it's over. Our eyes also require a certain amount of light in order to function properly. We can see a little bit as long as we've got some moonlight and we've got the stars and everything else. But if we really want to see, we need some proper daylight. Also, the heat of firelight and all of its modern equivalences, that sustains us through the winter. So all of these things, it is all about that life-giving force and enabling us to actually have the energy required to live. And then with spiritual light, we see a similar pattern. The spiritual light is what enables us to actually practice our craft, because that light isn't merely I can see, it's also the motivation of I do. So we're not just merely theoreticians, and those who do stay within the theory, that's very much their choice, that's their decision, but it's not the same thing as practicing the craft. So they are not fully realized witches and wizards because they're not doing the thing. You have to do the thing in order to qualify for the title. Another thing with spiritual light is that it helps us discern and recognize patterns that teach us something about natural law. And through that process, we are able to connect the dots. That's one of the reasons why we have so much lore built up around witchcraft and paganism in general, and why so much of it is logically consistent, especially if we start talking about various mythological patterns, different energy centers, their function, the function of the elements, how the masculine and the feminine interact with one another. We see examples of this reinforced on every single level of the natural order over and over and over again. And that lets us know, aha, we're not just seeing things, then we can actually start having some solid ground and we can build off of that. So that is another reason why it is our drive, our motivation. Now, for the solstices, they mark the high and the low of the solar cycles. So we're going into the summer solstice, so that's the absolute maximum power of the sun. And then 6 months later, we will have the winter solstice, and that is the absolute energetic low of the sun. And the difference of mood amongst people and just even the natural world during these different times, it is completely obvious. During the summer solstice, we're up, we're around, even if we're having some, perhaps lazy weekend afternoons and, cat naps in the sun and, going swimming and out hiking and things like that aren't necessarily as go. They're still, all of our energy, it's going outwards. We're wanting to go out into the world. We're wanting to interact. We're wanting to be amongst people. We're wanting to do things. Whereas, During the winter solstice, it's much more inward, isn't it? It's more like, yes, I'm happy to see my family, but I really want to rest. I want a nap. It's dark. Where's the good yummy food? I need carbs. I need to hibernate. Everything is it's much more internalized rather than being this outwardly focused. And speaking of focus, even the change of our magical focus is different. Because again, when we are going up to the summer solstice, our magical focus, it is about encouraging the agricultural cycle. It's about interacting with the Fae and other unseen spirit allies. It's about, again, the doing. And that is a direct consequence of the degree of light that we are receiving, which is why it is so different at Yule and why we're just trying to be more closed in with that. And then with the equinoxes, they are midpoints in the solar cycle. And once you reach an equinox, you've got that equal balance between the day and the night. And then from the autumn equinox forward, you have the diminishment of the light, whereas the vernal equinox, it is the expansion of the light. And at these points, that's really when the energy quickens, either, falling further into that dark or propelling forward into the light. So we feel these things. And the longer we practice and the more we pay attention to these energies, the more it just becomes part of our natural rhythms. There are so many things we'll find ourselves instinctively doing because we are responding to the light because we have internalized what it actually means. Now let's talk about our inner light. Now, all of the elements, as I've mentioned in previous video classes, all of these elements, they do exist within you. They exist within me, within other people, within the world in general. We will see manifestations of all of them to varying degrees in everything. So if you learn how to better tap into the fire within, that also grants you access to the light your inner fire provides, and that cannot be extinguished by any external source. However dim or radiant it is, that is subject to your influence and control. So if you are struggling perhaps with mental health issues, focusing on tapping into your own fire element and using its fuel to lift up your spirits. I'm not saying it's a cure or anything like that, but I am saying that it is a practice that you can use in conjunction with whatever therapy or medication that you are using to not only better manage your symptoms, but to have more of your time at a more elevated frame of mind and a healthier frame of mind. And this is also when we are facing times of discouragement, which I'm not going to lie, there has been much cause for discouragement as of late. However, despite all that, it is not within the power of external forces or external people to completely diminish my own inner light. I might have moments when I'm wallowing in the emotion of it. However, once that moment passes, I can tap into that inner fire, I can feed it up, and then it is going to bring me back into that more proactive, what am I going to do about all this? What is my role in the events at hand? Putting it into a much more productive frame of mind. And you can do that as well. It's just a matter of time and practice and personal discipline. You can do this. Now for guiding light. No pagan and no witch is ever truly alone. And we have guidance available to us from many sources, to begin with the Lord and the Lady. If you caught my class at the very beginning of Wicca 101, I explained that in my own personal view, I think the Lord and the Lady, the God and the Goddess, I think they are the original divine pair, and that essentially all of the other pantheons are descendants of them. Now, other Wiccans take different views, and if you want to go more into that discussion, go back to the playlist for Wicca 101 on the YouTube channel, and you'll find the class on that. It's one of the first. I think it occurred in the first month. But I go through a lot of the various common theories that you'll find, and you can examine those ideas at your leisure. But yes, we always have that source. And from there, we also have the patron deities and other deities with whom we have formed alliances. We have spirit allies. We have elemental spirits we can rely on. We have animal totems that we can reach out to for guidance. And of course, we are never without our ancestors. Our blood, the literal blood in our body, is their legacy. That cannot be extinguished. That cannot be altered. It cannot be changed. No one can take that away from us. And all we need to do is to tune into these energies in order to benefit from them. So, homework now for June 7th through June 13th. Number one, what do you most appreciate about this season of light? Because we are going into the very peak of the light half of the year. And then number two, how can you be more proactive in general? Using that light to be a force for action, for doing things. How can you make better use of that? And number three, which hopefully this should be no difficulty for you at all, go outside and soak up some of those rays. So that is what I have for you guys this week's comments, questions, concerns, complaints. Let me know in the comment section below, or email me at brigantiablackbird@protonmail.com, and I'd be happy to address any of your concerns there. But that'll do it for now, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.